Hi, friends, and welcome to one of the more unorthodox talks of the day. My name is Tereza, and I also work at Neuralink. um, and I really like Elm, and part of the reason why is because I really like design, and I'm also interested in how other industries think about design, and which is why we're going to talk a little bit about fashion today. So imagine your task is to put together a matching outfit. Now, one approach to this would be to go to a store, and one of those could be H&M. And so H&M is a brand that's very prolific in the sense that they have a lot of items and a lot of styles for a lot of people. And so I put together a small spectrum of what that feels like. So. For example, one of the great things about H&M is that you can sort of put together a lot of different styles to make your own unique look. And so if you like the blue sweater, you can put it together with the slippers for like a casual business look, or like with the sneakers for a modern, fresh look, or you can go for like a very unique look with the grunge boots, and that might be perfect for you. But you can always also come up with some combinations of pieces in here which are at least conventionally undesirable. and this might be by accident, or if you just simply don't know what you're doing. But this is not the only choice you can have. You can also go to a store like Chanel. And so the difference here is that you have a lot fewer pieces, and let's take a look at what that looks like. And so you can see here you have a tweed suit, you have a tweed dress, and you have another tweed dress, basically, and it kind of looks like the first one. And like the entire collection is basically like this. And what's more crazy is that there's only one pair of boots. Like, how am I going to express myself with only one pair of boots? But the point is here that everything does, in fact, match these boots in this entire collection. So if you do like the boots, then it's a very good pick because it's very easy to match things around. If not, though, you're not in a good position. So what a programmer might ask in this situation is like, which is right? Which is the most optimal way to pick an outfit? And in this context, of course, it's a little silly, because like obviously, if you like glitter boots, the Chanel store is a good choice because it's easy to put together the whole outfit, because everything matches. But if you want the grunge pastel look, then you should go for H&M. Now let's keep this in mind. We'll look at some programming. So imagine you have JavaScript and Elm. And it shouldn't be too hard. So let's make a tiny program in JavaScript. So you have a function. Just kidding, it's an object. And you set the name, and then you take another function, and then you attach it to this function, which is not really a function, but an object. And then we can use this as something that resembles a class, but isn't really a class. And then now we're allowed to use this function without an argument, and it just works. So that's great. But in Elm, if we do the similar thing, we can do, define the type, and make a function that takes that type, and then we just make an instance of this type and put it into the function that we made. And that also works, but like, boring. If you're used to having all these features from JavaScript, then coming over to Elm might feel like a sort of an imprisonment. I mean, you only have functions all of a sudden, and like, how am I going to express myself with only one pair of boots? Like, what if I want any other kind of boot? Like, it's just, how do I do this? And so, okay, I'm making fun of this, but like in reality, if you're asking the question, which is right, like both these languages are Turing complete, so they're all like fulfill the criteria of what a language should be. And in reality, if you like glitter boots, yeah, elm is the right choice. But if you like anything else, it's like maybe JavaScript is for you. Now, this is an elm conference, and I realized that. And I suspect somebody is thinking, yeah, like, that's great, Teresa, you're being very diplomatic, but like, elm is better, you know? Elm is like objectively simpler, and simpler is always better, right? And I think although that's a good argument, I think we should look inside ourselves and see if that's really always true. And by that, I mean look into our ecosystem. So we have, for example, a library like CSS and style elements. And they both like try to fulfill a similar goal, and like they want to help you style your application. But in CSS, you have a lot more option. It doesn't really like determine the way you do things. An example could be the font size setting. In CSS, you yourself can decide what units you work in, so it can be like pixels or like percentages of like God knows what, but like and other various combinations of letters, which I actually don't know what means. While in style elements, you like only can set it in pixels, and that's like it. So it's like objectively simpler. But does that mean that Elm CSS is just like useless or like wrong or doesn't work? No, of course not. I think we're a lot of people who are very grateful that we have Elm CSS, because sometimes the world isn't perfect, and in particular the CSS world. And sometimes you need to do weird stuff with like GPU optimizations and do like that translate C with the 0 to like, and do things that aren't pretty but like necessary. And for that, Elm CSS having all the options might be like, it's great. Another thing is also a library like style elements takes a long time to like reach its final form. In the way that when you have to build it, you sort of have to go through basically all of the options for stuff you can do in CSS and find out what you want to be possible and what you want to be impossible, and sort of put this all into one API, which also like gently guides and educates the user of this of your vision. And with good reason, that takes a long time. And meanwhile, it's actually really nice to have Elm CSS so we can do regular work. And so when we are faced with the same question of which is right, well, none. I mean, they're both very important to have in our ecosystem. And so I was in a dilemma regarding this at some point in my own work. So as mentioned, I am the author of a library called elm-plot, which does plotting. But it's a very particular kind of plotting, because my vision was that I wanted to be a library where you can only do like the most minimalist and expressive plots. But occasionally somebody would be like, hi, I need pie charts. Could you have pie charts? And I'd be like, well, did you know that pie charts are actually awful? And and because like humans are inherently bad at comparing volumes, and like a bar chart will always be superior, so you should just use a bar chart. And I'd be like, yeah, that's great, I get it. But like the designer at my work like is set on these pie charts, and you know I have a job I want to keep. And I'll be like, yeah, I mean I can relate to that. I also have a job I want to keep. But let's ask Chanel about that. And so for this, I wanna introduce you to a little thought experiment. So imagine it's Sunday afternoon, and you're lying in your Chanel suit and you're reading a book, having a good time, but like this skirt is kind of tight, so you're like, I wish there was some Chanel suit that was a little like looser. You know what Chanel needs? Chanel needs sweatpants. turns out, though, that Chanel has some really strong opinions about sweatpants. So, 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 so Karl Lagerfeld is the creative director of Chanel, and he literally said sweatpants are a sign of defeat. You lost control of your life, so you bought sweatpants. And so whether you agree with this perspective or not, it's pretty clear that sweatpants should not be part of Chanel's collection. Because of the people who actually do sympathize with this perspective, they sort of rely on Chanel to create only designs rooted in this perspective. And so if they were to add sweatpants in it, like, they would come into the store and they would all of a sudden have to do a lot of filtering and a lot of thinking about how to match these things. And that would degrade the experience. And they would, like, Chanel, they would just slowly turn into H&M. And this also explains why if H&M were to sell those glitter boots, it wouldn't make it Chanel, because part of the experience is that everything matches. And so, and this is also like, okay, like it doesn't make sense to add objects to Elm, even though you could just use functions only. And it's the reason why, like, JavaScript, just because it has functions, doesn't make it Elm. It's very important that you have a coherent design about it. And similarly, to get back to the charts, I can't add pie charts to it, because then people, when they use the library, can't trust it to only produce those minimalistic expressive charts. And so Chanel herself, she said this very clearly in the way that she said, elegance is refusal. You refuse to bringing diluting elements to your brand and to your identity. And what's interesting is that this idea, whether you do this or not, sort of splits the waters in this entire fashion industry into two sections, which are recognized as fast fashion and slow fashion. And so fast fashion is recognized by, it has a lot of pieces, like a lot of clothes, and it follows trends, it's not opinionated about style. And another thing is that it also has a very quick release cycle. So about 2 weeks, which is pretty crazy for an entire collection. And these are brands like H&M and Topshop and Zara and everything you see around like that. In slow fashion, though, you have a lot fewer pieces, but a very distinct character. And so they're very opinionated about their own style. And the release cycles are a lot longer, so like half a year and up until like maybe never. And these are like a lot of the brands like Chanel and like a lot of the French fashion houses in general, like high fashion. But also like there's a Danish brand called Carcel, which is, they literally just sell 6 sweaters and that's it. And they're really excellent quality and everything's very well thought through. And they're just like, we'll add another sweater if we come up with something excellent. But until then no. So it's like an extreme case of slow fashion. Now, how does this relate to programming? Well, I think these are basically just design strategies. And so I think it's valuable to think, if you're starting a package yourself, to think about what category you want to fall into. Whether, are you opinionated about how people should use this, or are you just going to give up all the options? And if you are opinionated, are you like prepared only to serve like a small section of people? Because like not everybody likes glitter boots. Like not everyone can use a very opinionated library. And sort of be ready to refuse to bringing elements which do not fit your vision, because you're going to turn into H&M. And if that wasn't the intention, it goes badly. And so another thing that's worth noticing is that there is in fact a difference between fashion and programming, and that being that we often work in teams in programming. And so imagine we're going back to our original task of picking a matching outfit, But now it's teamwork, and like you're in charge of the sweater, and you're in charge of the boots, and you go into H&M, and you pick out like what you like individually, and that's fine. They're all like great pieces, but like put together, they can work awfully together. And it's like nobody's fault. Everybody did a great job. It's just that that environment sets you up for a bad experience. While if you were to go into a shop like Chanel, it's like you could basically pick at random, and you'd probably be fine. So it's just like a good strategy when the work involves collaboration to go for a slow fashion, a very restricted design. And so, but another thing is that when you do make something in slow fashion, just because I made a library that has very like opinions about charts doesn't mean that it's like the opinion about charts. There's always more solutions, and this is also clear in the fashion industry in the way that like Chanel has an opinion about what a dress should look like, what elegance is, but that doesn't mean that like Yves Saint Laurent is wrong. And it depends a lot about where you come from and what traditions, what elegance means to you. So if you come from an object-oriented background, then objects are probably really elegant, and they probably are when it's in the right environment as well. You can't like claim a monopoly of legitimizing a fashion. And they know this in fashion, to quote Yves Saint Laurent, who's the founder of a French fashion house, like, we must never confuse elegance with snobbery, meaning that just because you have a definition of elegance doesn't mean that that everybody else is wrong. And I understand that because, like, I don't wear fashion only because I can't afford it. Like I don't wear Chanel because I can't afford it, but also just because I don't have that kind of love for glitter boots, and that's fine. It's just fashion. And that's all.